Hey, what's going on, y'all? So today I'm just going to be doing a quick guide on Sonoran Radio and Sonoran CAD just for all my dispatchers, so I show them how to function with it. I'm going to post this on YouTube public just so anyone else who's in a dispatch, hopefully if you're trying to learn something, hopefully they learn something new, get better at what they're doing. So starting off, I'm going to make this nice and quick, nice and short. We're going to talk about Sonoran Radio. So Sonoran Radio, if you're ever walking around in the game, you might see these towers here. They're actually Sonoran radio towers. You can see on the side. What this does is, if you go ahead and get your radio, you go ahead and turn it on, it's going to say disconnected at first. So, for Sonoran Radio, it uses TeamSpeak, and you're going to have TeamSpeak installed along with the Sonoran Radio script. So, or the Sonoran Radio plugin, my mistake. So you see it right here, it's installed, it's all working. If you go ahead and go into settings, it'll say if it's working or not. So I'm going to go ahead and connect. I'm just going to do that off screen so I don't leak the IP. Alright, so now I'm connected to the TeamSpeak. I'm going to go ahead and go into RTO. And now if you see the radio, it says channel county RTO, and it's showing RTO on my radio. Now I'm in RTO. If you go and click on it, it shows you a new number of things. It shows you, is your radio enabled? Yeah, it is. Which RTO are you in? Don't worry about the frequencies and all that. And it goes ahead and shows you your tower tower quality. So, tower quality, I'm going to get into that real quick. What this means is the lower your quality percentage, the worse your radio is going to sound. So, for example, as you saw, I'm at a solid 74.6%. Now, that is pretty solid, and everyone should hear me relatively clear. However, if you're around 50% or lower, it's going to start to hear staticky in the radio. This is to help this is the in-game equivalent of what happens in real life. When you have poor quality connection, it's going to be worse sounding on the actual radio. So how is this affected? Well, if you look at this tower, I already showed you it, the Sonoran Radio tower, you might see one of these boxes on the side is blacked out. That means it's destroyed. And if you go ahead and walk up the tower, you could actually repair it. So once again, remember, I'm at around 75%. I go ahead, get near the tower, get this prompt, press G to repair the tower. Go ahead and do that. Just a quick little animation, takes about 10-15 seconds just about. You could also RP, someone comes and fixes the tower. Usually cop isn't fixing the radio tower, so make sure you RP this out. So we go ahead and stop the animation, and now the box is white. So we fixed the box, and if you look at our TeamSpeak, look at that tower quality, almost 100%, since we're right by the tower, of course. So, tower's all fixed up, and we got high quality. Now everyone can hear us very clear, and yeah, that's about it. The only other main thing you might want to know about with Sonoran Radio is the fact that you can't really talk over other people. If someone else is talking on Sonoran Radio, it's going to say who's talking on here. So, for example, let me pull up my TeamSpeak. If I go ahead and click caps, which is my button for TeamSpeak for push to talk, you go ahead and see on county RTO on my radio, it says I'm the one talking. In TeamSpeak, I'm the one load up. That means I'm the one talking. And while doing this, if anyone else presses their button, their push to talk button to try to speak, it's going to give them a little chirp. It's going to tell them, it's not going to tell them, but it's going to signify that someone else is talking and you can't talk over them. If you spam it a couple times, it will let you through. That's usually for emergencies only though, so please don't talk over others on RTO. That's just proper courtesy. But yeah, that's really the basics of Sonoran Radio. Let's go ahead and learn about Sonoran CAD. Alright, now that we're ready to dispatch, we're in my dispatch outfit, got my radio on me, and we're in the dispatch room. So what we're going to have to do first and foremost, we're going to go ahead and do /show CAD. This is going to be the life and death of you. This is what you're going to be using really much of the time that you're dispatching. Once you're in here, once you're in the community, go ahead and get the permission key from the department. You'll go ahead and get the dispatch permissions, open up the panel. First thing I'm going to want you to do, click up here, this little red area, whatever it is on your screen. You're going to go ahead and set your identifier. So for my dispatchers, I want you guys to go ahead and do dispatch, then in parentheses, your call sign. We don't really use our call sign, so I just want it here just for identification. However, it's not going to be that important, and no one should be calling you by your call sign. They should just be calling control, dispatch, whatever they want to call it. Go ahead and put your name. Go ahead and just put dispatch as your rank. and go ahead and set your status to 10.8 as soon as you're ready for dispatching. Location, as long as your API is set correctly, this should automatically update, and for the rest of these, you don't gotta really worry about it. So go ahead and hit save, and yeah. So starting off, this may look very overwhelming. So for the layout, I'm just going to tell you guys real quick. Active units right here, active groups, 911 calls, and we have the actual call editor, and we have the active and past calls. So starting off, we got to make this a lot more simple. Yours probably looks something like this. It's probably a lot more cluttered. I'd recommend not having it like this since it takes up too much space. Just have the important information. I usually have unit number, name, I have location, and that's about it. Simple as that. This gives you a lot of information you need really quickly without having to read all the unnecessary amount. There's many other options that you could do for it. It has it here too. It has it on 911 calls itself. However, 911 calls, please keep in mind, is important. It gives you postals, it gives you streets, all that important stuff. So be careful on what you're turning on and off here. All right, going forward, we're going to go ahead and talk about the actual calls itself. So whenever you get, let's say for example, we get a radio call that there is a fight, postal 275. So we're going to do postal 275. How do we get this call? We got it through radio dispatch. The call status is currently active. It should usually always be active if there's units going to or investigating the call. Priority, code 1, 2, or 3. Just a reminder, code 1, no lights, no sirens. Code 2, lights, no sirens. Code 3, lights and sirens. For a fight, we'd probably want to go code 3, just in case someone's going to get hurt. For code, we can go ahead and put 1010. If there's no code listed already for the type of call you're getting, don't worry about this. It's really not the most important part. And go ahead and hit the call title. You can just do fight. Simple as that. For a description, officer calls in fight over radio. Oops. There we go. Simple as that. I don't already know the street for that. I'm just giving a random postal. Whatever street they gave you. If, for example, it's Alhambra. Yeah, Alhambra Drive. You go ahead and put that block. Don't worry about that. So yeah, simple as that. Honestly, if you want to get this, you'd likely just want to get this out as fast as possible. So keep in mind what's most important when you're filling it out. Really, if you wanted to put it out really quickly, you could do something like postal 275, call title, fight. Where'd you get it? Dispatch, active, code 3. Then go ahead and create the call. Simple as that. Because in dispatch, you want to get these calls out as fast as possible and go ahead and attach units, which we're going to get into next, which is actually attaching and detaching units. Now, with Sonoran CAD, you're able to update information very rapidly. So, what is this information all for? For example, if one suspect wearing all red has a gun, for example, you want to get this to the units on scene. So, how do they see this? Well, when you attach them to the call, make sure you hit update call.
New dispatch 275.
You can hear, since I just attached myself, that they're going to get this information. You go ahead and put in test, and they're going to hear on their end, they're going to hear the little click. I'm going to hit update call, give them a chime, and when they open CAD on the police end, it'll show them all the notes, the description, all this stuff right here. So attaching and detaching is a way to get this information across very quickly, and as you get more calls about the call itself, as you get more calls from the actual subjects on scene, the officers on scene, medics, whoever, go ahead and fill this information into the notes just so there's an active log of what's going on at the scene, and this will help keep everything a lot more organized and help the scene running smoothly. All right, detaching, you can go ahead and just hit this little X right here, hit update, or if the call is over itself, you can just go ahead and click the call, hit close call. Simple as that. It'll go into the call history, and you can just see it here. You can preview it. You can see all the information about it. So yeah, simple as that. So with attaching and detaching, you're going to want to go ahead and keep, well, with dispatch as a whole, you want to keep a good log of who is currently in service, out of service, etc. If you go ahead and click on any of the units, right now I'm just doing myself since I'm the only one on the CAD right now, hit edit. you go ahead and change your status. You get 10.6, 10.7, 10.8, 10.97, and 10.23. So changing this manually is a little bit annoying, especially when there's large priorities going on, large amount of people are moving at once. You have like 5 officers responding to a house, a shooting or something. It's a little bit annoying, especially when you have to keep adding all the call outs to the call notes. So what I'd recommend doing is, you see this little tab right here, the auto status tag. Click that, and you could change it to attached is 10.23, meaning they're on scene. Detached 10.8, that means they're available. And if the call is closed, which call closed, call detached is basically the same thing. It detaches all the officers, all the units that are on that call. It'll set them back to 10.8. You could change this how you'd like. Really, there's no reason to make either of these not 10.8. You could make this 10.87, meaning en route, but I just do 10.23 since very rarely do officers actually just not get through the call in general. So 10.23 helps keep it more organized, keeps it more in track, so you know which officers are on what call. All right, so going forward, groups. An active 10.12, an active ride-along is a good way to get around. It's a lot more safe for officers. So in CAD, how do we do this? So if an officer, if 2 or more officers are on a 10.12, an active ride-along, or maybe there's like a SWAT team, SRT team, whatever you call it, doing a large-scale operation, you're going to want to put them in a group so you keep them all together, since they're going to be riding together or staying very close to each other. How do you do this? You go ahead and click on it, click on just one of the units that's going to be doing it, hit add to group. For this group, we're just going to call it Union 1. And you'll see now that units move down here. You can see Union 1 is the group name, and you can go ahead and, we don't have any other people on right now, unfortunately, but if there is another person on, you just go ahead and click it, and you hit add to group like we saw before, and we just add them to Union 1. Once this group is disbanded or all the people are done with it, or maybe just one person leaves, you go ahead and click it, click the little X, and once there's no one in the group's going to be automatically disbanded. Simple as that. And you could add the entire group to calls like we saw before, where you could add individual units. You could add entire groups to calls just by clicking on them down here. It's really that simple. It's just another way to keep it easily organized. All right, now moving on to one of the most common things you're going to see, 911 calls. So we already saw before that we're able to just automatically, if we get a call for radio dispatch, we already saw the fight, the 1010, etc. So we're going to be getting 911 calls more often, which is how you're going to find out about these emergencies. For example, we have a couple here from the other night. You go ahead and open in editor. When you click it, hit open. I'd recommend when you get on duty, you go ahead and clear all these first, since they're just a little bit of a nuisance. It's keeping it unorganized. You just hit this, hit all, delete. I'm not going to do that right now since I might be working with some of these. But as you saw before, click one, hit open call in editor, and you'll see it automatically fills in part of the fields. What you're going to need to do is, if you're going to have officers responding to this call, you're going to go ahead and hit active. Make sure you call out this 911 call to any available units. Tell them any available information that you get from this call. For example, it's on Route 68. It didn't automatically, usually it automatically fills in the address, but it didn't in this case, so you do Route 68. We've got multiple 911 calls from the same person, so postal 242 is going to be where this is at. This is all related to the same thing. And you just have to fill in the priority, code 3. All right, simple as that. You just want to get this out as fast as possible and hit create call. Simple as that. So the 911 calls are easy to go ahead and just fill in. Really, it's that simple. Also, going forward, since it is a bit annoying, for example, if we had an officer doing a traffic stop, you'd have to go ahead and fill all this out. Active case, radio dispatch, traffic stop. Fill out the postal and all that, but we could save some time here. We could be more efficient with how we work. So we're going to clear that, and you could go ahead and create templates. So you just fill this all out, then click this little save button right here for calls ahead of time. So if you get a fight call and you have a saved template for it, you could just go ahead and here hit a fight call. I don't have one saved, but I do have one for traffic stop. So when you click that, I have most of this already filled out. You might have to change some of this information. Definitely fill in some of this information depending on the call, such as the address, the postal, and the priority of it. But this is usually what's a 1011 is going to look like when you're filling it out. So there's not much I would have to change. Maybe there's a maybe there's a bolo suspect, so it would be code 3 for this example. Postal 275 on, I guess, Alhambra. Just like that. And you saw how much faster it was to fill this out when it's automatically filled out than with just filling it out from hand. Yep, so that's most of the stuff for the actual call editor itself. Let's go ahead and move on to lookup and reports. So this is very important, since if there is a suspect that they have pulled over and they want a plate read, they can go ahead and give that to you. Or if they have an ID from the suspect and they want to find out if they have a criminal background, if they're armed, dangerous, any of that, you go ahead and get a background. So for example, if we wanted a name search for Mr. Patty Hendricks, you go ahead and fill that out and hit search. You're going to see right here the civilian under that name. This isn't as important, since that just shows whether or not the character exists. What matters is the records and reports. Doesn't look like there's any criminal history, any reports on the suspect, and they're all clean. They don't have a criminal record. Sometimes when you look this up, it might give a little audible call out that the suspect is armed, or they are dangerous or mentally ill. This is just a little indicator to help keep the officers safe and help the scene stay more fluid. All right. With this actual lookup itself, you can go ahead and send this information to the units. I'm the only unit on right now, so I can just hit this and it send it to myself. Simple as that. It just helps get the information to the officer, so if they're filling out the report, they know what the name is, what to fill in. And just a couple more things left. We have the filing of reports. So if there is a suspect that runs away and they want an active bolo put out for them, you go ahead and click new record. You hit bolo. This is under the record section, by the way. You go ahead and I always recommend doing the search feature. It helps keep it on the actual subject's record, and that helps keep the CAD a lot more organized. So please, if they're in the CAD, please use the search feature. This is for suspect itself. Like I said before, let's do Patty Hendricks. Choose the character, and look at that. All this information filled out. And vehicle information, let's just say there wasn't a vehicle in this case, but if there's a license plate that's registered in the CAD, you go ahead and look it up. I don't think there's anything under the name, obviously not, but if there was a vehicle, you just click on it just like you did for the name, and it'd fill out all this section. All right, then you go ahead and just add the record. You could flag whether or not they're armed, violent, and or mentally ill. Put in some notes real quick just so they know the severity of this case. You can put in the chart. Definitely put in the charges just so they know what they're dealing with. And yeah, that's simple. Just click add to records. I'm not going to do it since I don't want a bolo on my name, but you click add to records and officers will see that there is a bolo out for a certain subject. All right. Just a couple last things. We're going to want to look at the unit map. Pay attention. This is important. This helps out a lot on dispatching. The unit map is very important. It comes in clutch many times. So you might see all these little, you recognize this as the GTA map, but you recognize all these little bubbles on here. First of all, we can change this around. In this server itself, you're going to want these certain settings this way. You don't want the dispatcher on the map, but you do want emergency calls, repeaters, and these 4 tabs right here, fire, police, EMS, and actual unit descriptor itself. Also, you could turn on or off the range of these repeaters. Going back to the Sonoran Radio section, this is where a bit of the integration comes in between Sonoran Radio and CAD. You can see the range of all of these repeaters for the tower. So remember, the further you get away, the farther on the edge of the circle you get, the worse your radio transmission is going to be, and the more staticky it will sound. So this will give an idea of where the officers are and whether or not they're about to fall out of range of one of the repeaters. Obviously, we saw in the TeamSpeak that there's a percentage, but if you want to tell the officer that they're about to run out of the zone of the transmission range, you could tell them by looking at this map. We're going to turn that off for now since that clutters up the map, but you go ahead and look around. So whenever you get a 911 call, it should automatically pop up on here. Like, I believe, here we are. That shooting call that we had on the, when we were demonstrating the 911 feature, you could see this is where it was. Fazio, 204, I hear more shooting. That reflects right here. So you can see where the 911 call is coming from. We don't have any officers on right now, so they're not on the map. But when there's officers on the map, I'll just turn my dispatch one on. You could see where the actual units are on the map. So you could have an idea of where they are. If you need to look for them, if they're in danger, you could follow them through this map. This is very helpful. It shows who's best to respond for what calls, showing how close they are. And I just recommend having have all these settings on so you can see where each individual fire, EMS, police units are. Alright, that's about it for the live map. I'd heavily recommend using this. You could even open 911 calls in the editor through this. It's just a great feature, so I'd recommend using it. Our final thing we're going to touch on is the actual documentation. This has things like 10 codes, so if you need a little refresher on 10 codes, you can just go in there. We have the penal codes, what crimes relate to what. Quick links, don't worry about that. Notepad, this is important. If you have to add any notes for any suspects, in case you want to fill out something like a BOLO or an arrest report later, you can just fill it out in here. I don't know, suspect has red hair, white t-shirt, etc. Just more or less is going to be filled into the call notes itself, but you could also add personal notes here. It's just it's just another way to write down notes. It's just that simple. But yeah, through this around 17 minutes, that is just how to use Sonoran CAD and Sonoran Radio. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you learned. Hopefully you know how to use Dispatch. Really the best way to get better at it is just getting in game, getting some usage with it. Just build up experience over time. It's very simple once you get used to it. Can get a bit overwhelming at times, but really it's just satisfying overall. Hopefully you learned. If you have any questions, go ahead and reach out to me. But yeah, thank you. Have a great one.